This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Our friends over at SeatGeek are giving us a promo code of TBA Wrestling. That is TBA Wrestling for $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Gunners Rats Podcast, where we are positively Arsenal, and that we are. And we're back here on a Monday, iTunes and Spotify, Amazon Music, and on YouTube, TBA Wrestling, if you want to search that one out, for another episode. We're on Patreon as well. Check that out in the link below for extra audio every single week. Loads of them. So jump on that. But it's an interesting one because as much as we're gearing up for the new season, it feels quiet, but it also feels loud. I feel like we've spent a lot of our time talking about what could happen and what will happen or what we don't think will happen. But I think it's starting to realize that maybe some things aren't happening and sometimes things don't have to happen. Does that make sense? Have I just confused everyone in the first minute of this podcast? Because I'm going to be honest, I've not got anything written down. I think I'm just going to express my feelings as of now, because we did have this weekend the first proper preseason game that wasn't behind closed doors against Girona. Some really nice things actually to talk about there. We have the Vinicius saga that is ongoing, and I'll give you as much update as I have currently. And we also have the Bruno Guimaraes of it all. And there's a couple of questions I want to ask myself, ask you, what we'd be happy with, what we aren't happy with, the detriment of a saga, and having more than one potentially, because the reporting that I'm seeing right this second, it feels like we might actually have two sagas in our hand, unless one of them doesn't actually exist at all. So we'll talk about that. I think we will start at the preseason game. We'll get to transfers in the second half. But preseason started. It was good to see the amount of players back, because when you actually look at it, and this happened to us last year, when even though we got a gigantic squad, a really good squad, there was times where I'd watch a game and I'd think to myself, who is it that we're missing? There's someone we're missing, and that's why we're not playing maybe quite as well. And then you realise there was either no one missing, or it was someone you didn't think necessarily had that bigger impact on the team. You start thinking, oh, maybe we're just short of some players, which is interesting with such a big squad. But I had that feeling this week where we see that Girona lineup, and I haven't got the lineup directly in front of me, but I believe it was Kepa, Calafiori left back, right back was Ben White, centre backs was Mascara and Hincapi. The midfield was Lewis Skelly, Havertz and Waneri. On the right you had Dalman, on the left you had Soles, and up front you had Gyökeres. So I looked at that and I thought, to start a pre-season friendly like that feels like a very big statement of intent, or strong out the gate, because a lot of the time you see that team come together maybe late on in a game, or you never truly see a team that strong, because when you looked at our bench, the Norgard information with Everton, he was there but wasn't in the squad, which is obviously quite telling. But when you looked at the bench, you thought, I'm seeing Fabio Vieira, I'm seeing Reece Nelson, I'm seeing Jesus, I'm seeing a lot of the kids that we haven't seen much of. Some that we have, the likes of Salmon or Ibrahim, or even Harriman Anus. But I looked at it, I thought, oof, that's a real preseason team on that bench. And usually you mix them in, maybe that back four was as strong as we can be currently, I would say. But maybe you'd throw in, one of the youth players or two of them in that back four, and when the two mainstays come out in the second half, the other two mainstays come in. So you never truly get a proper back four, or a real strong back four. It's always kind of half and half. Maybe the wingers are, Nelson and I've completely blanked on his name. A really good winger. He came on late. He played for us in the Champions League last year, briefly. I can't remember his name. Oh, it's not coming to me. On the right, you play with those two maybe. But Gyökeres is in the middle, or Havertz, and you just think that mix means you never fully get kind of rhythm. So I really liked the fact that we had our best possible 11 out to start the game. And albeit we ended up only seeing it for 20 minutes, it was a fruitful 20 minutes. But, after 20 minutes, I assumed it was pre-scheduled changes, where I think Gyökeres went off for Jesus. I think it was Hincapi went off for Salmon, and Fabio Vieira came on for Havertz, I think. So obviously pre-decided changes early on in the the game based on people's fitness and how soon they've been back, because Gyökeres and Havertz only just met up with the team before going out to Girona, so that makes sense. Even Hincapié was the same. Norgard was there. Like I said, there's a transfer rumour going on with him that maybe he isn't in the team for obvious reasons. I'll get to that now because it's not really a saga, so we won't get to it in the transfers later. So it looks like Norgard's going to go to Everton for 7 million plus potential add-ons. I think this is incredible. I think it's good from Arsenal. I think it's good for the player. I think it's good for everyone involved. There's a smidgen of sadness with it, but the overall picture being, this is a guy at Brentford. He was the captain. He was looking at a potential last deal of his career, maybe proper long deal with Brentford, and kind of maybe staying on same money, but slowly being kind of fed out of the team and into the bench, and kind of just, he'll probably be there for another year, maybe two, then he'll kind of move on. He was also looking at potentially going back to Norway, I believe. He's Norwegian, right? Oh, have I just got that completely wrong? Is he Norwegian? He's either Norwegian or he is Danish. Norgard. Christian Norgard. Christian Norgard. He is Danish. So apologies. He's someone who's looking to go back to Denmark potentially with his family and see out his kind of career really in his homeland. Arsenal then come in and go, we just want a level-headed, maybe veteran of the game for the locker room and someone who could come in and actually do a job. And we all saw that was really good business at 10 million plus add-ons. With market value of 6 million, it made sense. And in the end, it was a 2-year deal. It looks like we're going to get a year. So probably about half of that money. So it was a smart signing. I think we all agree with it. I think he was maybe underutilized. But at the end of the season, we saw with Declan Rice and Eze talking about that 5 games to go when a lot of City were going to take us over. He was the one that spoke up and really spoke for the team and galvanised everyone. And you could see it in even the pictures, even after this Girona game, that the players love him. They wanted him to lift the trophy. And he was such an unsung hero of that year. And he'll always be remembered for that. But to go from thinking maybe you stay at Brentford but get fed into the bench, or you go back to Denmark, to end up going to the team that you go on to win the championship with, but also go to a Champions League final and experience that whole kind of experience of group stage, playing in those group stages, knockouts, being with the team, going to a final with your team. To go in a run-in with Man City and win it and lift that trophy and be a part of that. And same with going to a Carabao Cup final and being a part of the squad. He experienced everything he probably wanted to experience in his career that he hadn't already. And he got to do it in a year in which he probably thought he was going to start winding down. So he got an extra year. But the extra year has also done something else. He's going to Everton. He'll play football games there. He'll play more than he did for Arsenal. Yeah, he's not going to necessarily win something because I think Everton are one of the few teams that have very rarely ever won anything. But he'll make them better. He'll be great for that locker room. But also, it's almost like reinvigorated his career because he thought he was going to maybe sign a 2-year extension at Brentford, maybe go back to Denmark. He ends up with the champions. He makes very good money. He does all the things he's always dreamt of that he thought probably had passed him. And now he's looking at another 3-year deal at Everton. And I just think that's incredible. I think it's great for him. You think back to when he joined and his son seeing him and him crying when he was trying on the kit and how excited he was. That's the sadness that he's being moved on. But it looks like Arsenal's policy is going to be 1 in, 1 out. When Trossard left, instantly Solis was bought. I think Norgard going will almost be instantly responded with a midfielder signing. And I actually think that's why it hasn't officially happened yet, but it looks like it's done. I think they need to get the Bruno Guimaraes one done, and we'll get to that later in the episode. But when you actually do step back and go, he lived his dream, and also this season was so iconic. And shout out to Arsenal with the Idris Elba narrated. I don't even know if it was Idris Elba, but it sounded exactly like Idris Elba, so I assume it was. Documentary they put out for this season is unbelievable. Go check it out if you haven't. It's a real good watch. It's also because of the World Cup, and I've talked about it before, having a Champions League final not too long after winning the league and then not too far after a Carabao Cup final, and the stress that was last year, to get to sit back and watch it knowing we're champions, having gone away for a month or two to watch the World Cup and not really overly thought about Arsenal, it was such a lovely reminder of how much I love that team and how iconic that squad was. The squad that had Gabby Jesus playing very minimal games and scoring a couple goals, but they were so important. Having Martinelli from the get-go, but scoring such a massive goal in the Premier League, but having an unbelievable form in the Champions League. Having Gabriel being the way he was all season, so polarising. Timber being unbelievable. The resurgence of Ben White. Calafiori, Lewis Skelly being like a closer and coming in at the end of the season and just stealing a position off of a guy like Zubimendi who had changed our fortunes for 75% of that season. To even playing a Champions League final where he was the best player on the field for Arsenal. The Dowman goal against Everton. The, Madueke coming in and doing his best to kind of deputise for Saga. Gyökeres and the mask celebration and, finally buying a proper centre forward. Declan Rice having a Ballon d'Or shout of a year. Eze coming in being unbelievable in certain games. Odegaard coming in being unbelievable in certain games. We had closers, we had starters, we had people that were unbelievable at the start of the season. It was just a real good group and a real good kind of camaraderie, and it was lovely to see. I think a lot of it is more hindsight. I think in a moment it was probably one of the more stressful seasons, maybe not the best football, all these things, but there's such a lovely reminder of that crew. And, I'm someone who collects sports cards and collecting the Topps Chrome from this year. People like Norgard are in there. There's autos you can pick up of Norgard. And I love that because I think that one particular, I know it was 22 years between winning leagues. Even if we win it next year and go back to back, even if we win it in 2 years' time or in 5 years' time, this one will be as special as the Invincibles. And I think in, a certain amount of time, I think everyone remembers the 89 team that won it at Anfield late because of that, the way it ended. And also that team's quite iconic under George Graham. Then I think people will think of the Invincibles, and you think of Omri and Bergkamp and Ljungberg and Pires, etc. But you also think people like Edu and Keown and people that weren't necessarily in every starting lineup. And then you think of this one, and I think you will think of Declan Rice and Gyökeres and Gabriel and Saliba and Raya and all these kind of guys. But you'll also remember that there was a Norgard on the bench and a Max Dowman at 16. And again, if Max Dowman goes on to have a hell of a career in 20 years, we'll be saying, like we were with Fabregas and the Invincibles, he was actually a part of that. We forget. And Dowman became the youngest ever winner of the Premier League. So there's such a lovely feeling I have for that season, and I think it will stand the test of time. And the iconic scenes of when we won the league, when City draw to Bournemouth, and what we did, and there's just something so iconic with it. I'm so glad that Norgard was a part of that. And when he retires, I think that will be the career highlight is that year. Whatever he does at Everton, what he did amazingly at Brentford, that will be the season he talks about. That will be the season he remembers. And I'm glad he was a part of it, and he was such a big part of it as far as what the players saw, maybe more than what we saw. So that was my little piece on Norgard, which is in amongst this Girona kind of breakdown. But he wasn't on the bench. Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel Magalhaes were there, but didn't make the matchday squad. So when you actually look at who we've got left to come back, Timber as well, just a quick mention on him. He was with the team. He went home. It was widely reported poorly that he'd gone home because of another injury. It looks like it was a pre-planned thing he had to come back to do as far as his injury and rehab and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying he will be fit for the start of the season, but it wasn't anything new. It was something that was planned by the club. So when you actually think about who's in training as of right this second to today, I think they're going out to Dublin today. They got back from Girona. I think they're at the Sobar today, and then they go to Dublin. We were playing Wednesday night, I believe. But you've got Meslier, Kepa, and Setford. Your defenders are Mosquera, Gabriel, Hincapi, Calafiori, Timber, and Ben White, all training. You have people like Salmon as well. In the midfield, you have Norgard as it stands. Norgard. We have Lewis Skelly. We have Havertz. We have Waneri. I believe that is that for now. That's probably the more kind of shady area. Then we have Dowman. We have Gyökeres, Havertz in the up front role as well as Soles and now Martinelli. So when you look at it, it's getting awfully close. It's more or less Spain and England. It's Rice, Zubimendi, Eza, Odegaard. I think should be back for this part. If not, he'll be back for the Emirates Cup shortly after Dublin. But we're we're 5 or 6 players away from a fully back squad. And again, there's people like Saliba who are going to miss time due to an injury. It looks like Declan Rice has been calling us out every day to say, if I start training here, I can do this and blah, blah, and he just needs to have a break. And he definitely needs a break. He doesn't need to be in Dublin. He doesn't need to be in the Emirates Cup. Maybe he can train the week of the Community Shield and be in the squad. He doesn't need to play it. If he could be fit for the start of the season, I'm more than happy. If he's even fit to play half of the first game of the season, I'll be more than happy. But Saliba we know is going to be out. Saka, we don't know what's necessarily going on with him, whether it's just a little rest and then similar to Rice, he'll kind of join up. But we've got Eza, we've got Madueke, we've got Zubimendi, Moreno. They're going to fill out this squad in the next 5 to 10 days. And that's there. We're there. We're back to full strength. And it almost, considering it's a World Cup year, to see that strength of side in that first half was really good. I thought the kind of standouts of the day were obviously Dauman. I thought Lewis Skelly. I thought Havertz looked sharp even in that 20-minute spell. Gyökeres looked obviously a little bit off of it. Maybe not quite where Havertz was, because Havertz found fitness at the end of the season. He didn't play a whole season like Gyökeres did. Then went to the World Cup, did okay, and then had a little rest. So Havertz should be raring to go. And if he's fully fit, I really think that could be transformative to the way in which we play football as well, because him and Gyökeres seem to have some kind of understanding and also on and off the field, which helps. I think we're going to be a different team with Havertz as the centre forward. The other one as well was Solis. Really did impress me. It's a pre-season game. We've had players score 4 goals. I'm looking at you, Yaya Sanogo, in pre-season, and we think we found the next, second coming. I'm not getting carried away, but Solis felt like the most Arteta winger I've ever seen. I don't know how to explain it. He was tight with his fullback behind him, Calafiori, when we were defending. He was winning balls back there. He was very neat and tidy. He was winning. He was going to get put under pressure when the ball kind of gets fed that way, and what's the word? Bottlenecking it. The ball kind of ends up in a tight area. He was kind of sweeping in and kind of running back towards his own goalie, giving it to the goalie as the outlet, or sweeping across the field, which is what Trossard did so well for us, and something Martinelli sometimes struggles with. But Saka does it really well on the right. So to see that was really good. He just looked dangerous. He also looked like someone who wasn't looking to take on his man every single time. But what I liked was we haven't seen someone on the left do what Saka does on the right, where he stands a guy up. You don't know if he's going left and then crossing it, or if he's going right and shooting. And it paid off because he did get a goal in that first half. We saw a little, and the goal was really nice because when he stood the players up, he did it a couple of times where he got a shot away but never got it on, it never reached the goal. It was blocked. To get the goal was really good. We also saw some of his set pieces. They do look good. He had some deep ones that were coming back across. We're implementing a lot of short corners, which I do think is something I kind of said at the end of last year that I think we're going to do this year, because they're going to crack down on corners this year, and we don't want to be the team they make a example out of. So I think we're getting ahead of the short corner routines. But he looks like a real problem, I think. He looks good. And he looks like a smart bit of business. He looks strong. He looks defensively sound. He just looks good. He looks sharp as well. I know his preseason's been a bit better than others. He didn't go to the World Cup, but I really like the look of him. Dauman as well in that first, I think it's the Havertz goal. The way he holds off 2 full-grown adults and then slides that ball perfectly through to Havertz, who finishes it nicely on his left foot. Dauman gets his goal later on as well. I think he's such a special talent, and I do think there's an element of this year. I think if Saka's not playing, the first port of call has to always be Max Dauman, first and foremost. Before Madueke, doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter about the price tag, the wage. We have to accept this guy is ready. And I don't think he's a right winger. I think he's a 10. I think he's a Kaka type 10 in that middle. But at his age, maybe the best pathway for him is there with Odegaard, Eza, Moreno, Havertz, Wineri, and all these guys ahead of him. Not ahead of him, but in that same area. Madueke is flattering to deceive. And Saka's hurt. That feels like a place he could go, take that position. And some people, age is quite important. I think some people it's not. You look at Yamal at 16, he broke into Barcelona, he's winning La Ligas, he goes to the Euros, he wins them the Euros. He then continues to win La Ligas, he goes to the World Cup, he wins the World Cup. As a starter in all of this, from 16 to 18, now he's 19. When people are special, they need to play because they are ready and they're going to do stuff. Dalman played a lot last year. He played the year before when he was 15. He's already scoring goals in the Premier League. He's already winning the Premier League. This is a guy that I think we just got to accept is that player. And, we're going to talk about transfers later, but when we're looking at Vinicius Jr., when we're looking at Barcola, and we're looking at some of these players, Morgan Rogers, I really think we need to look interiorly before we do spend the money, because as much as we all love the idea of getting Vinicius, at some point that will clog up the pathway somewhere. And I know I've mentioned it before, the left side is probably one we're not overly worried about. And if he comes in, he's unbelievable and it keeps Solis out of the team, I think we can live with it. I want Solis to play a lot because I rate him, but we'll accept that. What we won't accept is essentially what the Madueke signing was, and it did work, it has happened, is I don't want Dalman losing minutes to Madueke again. I don't want players like that not getting the minutes based on players that aren't good enough. Because I don't think if you played Dalman and Madueke, let's say Saga can't play all season, touch wood. If you played all of next year with Madueke on the right, and then you played one with Dalman on the right, the whole games, 90 minutes every single 3 days, I think at the end of the season we have more honours and better distancing competitions and a better goal and assist return with Dalman. I don't think you even lose anything as far as defensive. I don't think we go, yeah, but when Madueke played, we conceded a lot less, especially on that right-hand side. I really don't. And I don't think, usually with a 16-year-old, you go, yeah, no, but Madueke's just got that bit more experience. Madueke's final ball isn't as good as Dalman. His striking of the ball isn't as good as Dalman. His skill isn't as good as Dalman. His creativity is not as good as Dalman. His defensive work's about the same. So I just think it's time that we look at that and we look at that squad and we go, this is a squad that was good enough to win the league. The only thing that we've really got rid of as far as day-to-day games being played is Trossard, and we've replaced him with a very smart 24-year-old. We're not weaker than we were last year. We're as good. So whether we add anyone or not, we're good enough to go back-to-back. And we have to remember that, I think, because I think we're naturally falling into the excitement of big transfers and accepting, oh, yeah, but if we do that, we'll definitely go back-to-back. There's no definites, even if we do spend the money. There's absolutely no definites. But one definite that could happen is you clog pathways. For example, Norgard is not staying because we're going to bring in a midfielder. That could also have a detrimental effect on Zubimendi long-term, Lewis Skelly. If you bring in Rogers, that could have a detrimental knock-on effect to the likes of Dalman, Waneri, even Ezza's short-term future. These are all things that I think as Arsenal fans we can all agree we don't like. And it's so exciting, isn't it? It's the equivalent of, there's a really nutritious meal and we're looking at it on the table and we know it's good for us. We know it'll work well. We know the next day we're going to feel great. But it's really exciting. McDonald's meal turns up and you go, that's going to be nicer. So I think I'm going to go with it. But in the back of your head, you think, but I know that's going to be a detriment to the other meal and to how I feel tomorrow. We still make that decision. And I think with transfers, we get so caught up. Because in November, if we don't make the Vinicius transfer, I think we'll all be sitting there going, I'm so glad we didn't do that. Because Dalman's playing more games or whoever's playing more games. And maybe we're not. Maybe we're going, well, if we just bought a world-class left winger, we'd be top right now. I don't know. But the only thing we'll never not want is the youth players to come through. So we have to kind of think ahead before we get too overexcited. And again, I'm very happy to bring in Bruno Guimaraes and Vinicius and still keep Waneri and Lewis Skelly and Dalman in the fold. And maybe it is a moving on a Madueke in January or next summer or, doing it then. But I just think we need to accept we've got some, and I said it on last Wednesday's show, if Waneri was playing or Dalman or Lewis Skelly were playing for Brighton, we'll be spending 80, 90 million on them. And we've already got them. And just because of that, it just doesn't seem as cool or as fun or whatever the wording is. So, but that first half, you got Dalman the assist on Havertz. You got Sozoles with a goal. We go on to win it 4-1. There was a weird spell. They scored a header And we look shaky on set pieces last year. I think that's continued, and I know this isn't our strongest 11, but I don't know. There's definitely a weakness, I think, on set pieces as far as defending them. We also score in the second half, obviously Dowman, and then we get that weird ricochet goal where kind of Ben White jumps up and wins the ball back high off of one of their midfielders. He goes straight into Jesus' path, who finishes it nicely. And again, Jesus is playing and scoring in preseason games still. I don't know what the future holds for him, but you do look at potential transfers and you think to yourself, Vieira, Nelson, Jesus, there's close to, if not more, about 450,000 in wages there. And these players aren't going to touch the team. And you do think that offloading them, even if it is for a combined 35, 40 million, it needs to be done, I think, to be able to go and pay a Vinicius a certain amount of money or whatever it is. And even if it isn't Vinicius, someone, or do something. And also clear the decks a little bit. I think we do need to clear the decks a tiny bit. On about 65 minutes, that game took a real kind of different turn. It became a bit of an academy match. We made a lot of changes. And it was fun to see the likes of Ibrahim in midfield. I really like him. There's some good players in there. Salmon is, I think maybe overshadowed by Dowman, but this is a guy who's played Champions League and Premier League football. He's 17. Well, he's 16, I think. But real top talent. And when he comes in, he almost looks like the Saliba level head in amongst them. But most of them are older than him. So it's very odd. Just a good kind of feeling I got with him. But I don't necessarily want to watch Fabio Vieira minutes or Nelson minutes anymore. I've seen enough of them. I know it's not for any reason. So it'll be nice to move them on and we'll see more academy prospects. And again, talking about clogging up pathways, those Fabio Vieira minutes, and they have to do it because he's a professional. He needs to be fit. He also needs to be in the market to be sold and visible. But it's also clogging up minutes in this preseason that maybe another youth player would have got. Maybe O'Neill gets more minutes if they're not there. And maybe he impresses even more. And then he starts to kind of filter into the matchday squads in the Premier League. There's such sliding doors moments. You don't want to kind of clog up too much, especially when we've got such a bloated, good squad. But the game kind of took it kind of slowly died out really to that, which is fine. This is game 1 of 5 preseason-wise. For that, I thought the level was very good from our players. I thought that first team that stepped foot was really good. And I do like the idea of maybe we do that every time, start with our best possible 11 and work our way back from there, whether people play for 5 minutes, 50 minutes, or the full 90. I would like to see us start that way, start games, get a little bit of cohesion, get maybe a goal or two, and then kind of work with what you've got from then on. So I did enjoy that. We do have a game on Wednesday that I'll talk about before then on Wednesday's episode here on iTunes and Spotify. But it was a good run out. I really enjoyed it. I know there was a lot of issues with the website. Well, I didn't have any issues with it. And it ended up going live for free on YouTube because obviously people paid for it. They couldn't unwatch it. I don't know what Arsenal do to that app or that website. But every year there's new problems. And I don't know how they haven't got this kind of... For such a good club or such a big franchise. And why is that app not working almost perfectly? Why are we paying for preseason games as well? That's another one that I'll never kind of get my head around. Just stream these on your YouTube. Stream them on your website on an app that's really easy to use and link to your TV without getting your laptop out and a USB, a HDMI, syncing the sound and doing all this and then having to zoom in because if you make the picture too big, it's too blurry. So you have to zoom in on your Mac and then the mirroring does this and that, or whatever it is. It's too much. It's too much. It needs to just be streamed on YouTube, which is usually compatible with Sky TV or smart TVs. It's just silly. And hopefully they'll kind of work out some wrinkles. But this happens every year. And by the end, the last game, they've got it down. Then a year goes by. You pay for the preseason. You do it. Something goes wrong. They work it out by the last one. They just go around in circles. So I'd love to see them kind of sort that out or do something. But yeah. That was that really for the preseason. We have got the game in Dublin. It's Real Betis, right? I say that like I'm talking to someone, but I think Arsenal's next fixture is against Betis on Wednesday at 7:30. That will be live on the app. And that is in Dublin. After that, we're straight into the Emirates Cup as well because we play on the Sunday I'll be at Comic Con Wrestling if you want to check out Newport Comic Con or Wales Comic Con in Newport at the ICC. We'll be wrestling there both days. Come say hello. But I'll be missing that one unless I can log in. And that is against Dortmund. Then we've got a mid-week against Como. Fabregas is Como the following Wednesday. So we've got a game every 3 days, really, which is hilarious. And then 3 days after that, on the 16th, on the Sunday, we've got Arsenal Man City in the Community Shield. Then we've got 4 days off, and then we've got Coventry to start the season nicely. The annoying part is game 2. When game 1 is on a Friday night, game 2 is on a Monday night. So we've got a 10-day gap between our 2 games, and it's 8 o'clock on a Monday night against Aston Villa. Then we've got Chelsea 4:30 on a Sunday. I'm just looking at it. But how quickly is this international gap? God, it's huge. We've got Chelsea, then we're away to Sunderland. Again, I think that might be a Saturday 8 o'clocker, the Sunderland one. Then we got Brighton at 3 o'clock on the following Saturday. Then we are away for nearly 4 weeks. And then we're back against Leeds. Yeah, it's like a 3-week gap, I think, for the internationals, which is an absolute nightmare. But that is coming. We'll deal with that when we get there. But for now, there's the club friendlies, and we'll get to that every 3 days. And like I said, if you get the Patreon, we'll be talking about this stuff all week, so you can kind of keep constant Arsenal information in your head. We'll move to some transfer news. We did the Norgard part. The feeling I've got, and this is, I want to ask a couple of questions about what's good business, what isn't good business, what we'd be happy with, what we won't be happy with. And also, there's a little bit more news we've got. So, in the last few minutes, it's a late episode, I'm usually recording by now, is an hour ago, Arsenal and Newcastle are in direct negotiations over the transfer of Bruno Guimaraes. This is finally. And again, we've been told that this has been going on for a long time. No one's ever said they're in direct talks, but we were alluded this weekend that he was going to sign. An offer around the region of 70 million to 80 million may be enough to secure a deal, despite Newcastle initially insisting they were going to be close to 100 million. Luke Edwards says, I would expect this to be resolved this week. Newcastle have got a month to find a replacement. Player is desperate to make the move to Arsenal. Just need to agree a fee. So it looks like everything was kind of sorted, but the first bid has been rejected. That is official now. Sky Sports have confirmed. A bid today has been declined. There is a rumour from Toon Takeover, I don't know how reliable, which is just had a message saying the opening bid was between 60 million plus 5 million in add-ons. That it does feel very low, but it does feel like maybe we're working up towards that 70 million mark without starting that. But it does feel like it's becoming a little bit maybe... It's becoming a saga in itself. We've heard about Bruno Guimaraes. How long ago was this? This was just before the World Cup, I think, that we were interested. There's been talk that everything's been agreed, but the clubs need to talk, and we've known that. We were kind of led to believe from all the in-the-knows, quote-unquote, this weekend, that he was returning to training on Monday, and probably the deal would get done this Monday in some capacity. We reckon he'll probably be enough so that he might be in Dublin for Wednesday. That was the talk. Then today we have a spat of news that's come out of everywhere, which is basically the first bid was only put in about 2 hours ago. And as of Monday at maybe midday. And it was declined. It looks like it's around the 60 million mark. But the clubs are now actually directly talking to each other. The fact that he wants to move so badly and the clubs are talking, one, the deal is real. Two, the deal will probably get done. But what we don't want to do is this becomes something where we go, next deal 64, 67 plus 2 million add-ons, 70 million flat, 74 plus add-ons. We don't want this to keep going back and forth and it becomes a thing. And then at some point, even Arsenal maybe turn around and go, no, this isn't happening. We've already got one big saga going on. I don't want two happening simultaneously. We are notoriously bad at selling, but we're also notoriously bad at allowing these things to linger. And I've talked before that I really like the fact we walk away from deals at certain prices. And I agree with this one because I think you find out the true feelings on some stuff like this once people believe certain things are happening. So this weekend it seemed like very likely we were going to get him for 74 million or something like that, and it looked like it was going to happen. Every rival fan basically then came out. They went from saying he's a really good player, Arsenal, that's going to be a problem, to 70 plus million for a 29-year-old who's probably got one good year left in him, blah, blah, blah. They're paying over the odds just to stay at the top. Now it's not happening. Apparently 65 million, which is what we put in today with the add-ons, is a bit of a slap in the face and a bit of a joke of a bid. So I can't really figure out where the truth is, because he's clearly one of the best midfielders in the league, when Tonali is not the best or better than Bruno. He's younger. It went for 100 million. I think we can't turn our nose up. If we get him for 70 to 75 million, I think it's good business. I know people are struggling to kind of see that, and then there's other sides that are kind of saying that's very good. I think it is very good in today's market. We just got to accept the way the new market is. But what I don't want to do is this lingers, because the Vinicius thing is very much becoming problematic, I'd say. Let's have a little read. Today he returned to training. Bernardo Silva's also returned to training an hour before everyone else had to get there. They were having medicals. A lot of people thought originally that was because he's re-signing and you get a medical, but I think it's just they've reported back to training today, so they have to go through their medicals. Even Real Madrid on Twitter put up a post about it, I believe. They said, here they are, and it's a picture of Bernardo Silva, Vinicius, and I can't see who the other one is. I can't open the picture. But another player. It says, here they are, medical checkup, Blue Hospital, Santias for Bebas. And then the next couple picture is number 7 at Vinny Jr. at 7. A couple pictures of him training with the team. Then there's Bernardo Silva training with the team, taking a selfie. It feels very much like they're just back today and that's what they're doing. But they do also feel like they're trying to troll with the use of so much Vinicius. People are seeing that as he's back and he's definitely staying. I still am in the camp that I very much think he's staying. I think he wants to be at Madrid. I think he's interested in coming. I think he would do it if they have no interest. But I do think we're second. My feeling is he has his heart set on one thing, but he will happily do number 2, which is us, if certain things aren't done. So I don't think we're like his number 1 with a bullet in any way. Does that affect me wanting him? No, because I think he'll just have to accept what he's going to do, and he's happy to do it, because he could also turn around and say, I'll take less money than what I want and I'll stay, and they would have him. So if he really wants to stay at Madrid, he can do that with monetarily. So he will do it happily. I don't think it's his number 1. I don't want to get this caught in a thing, and again, by the way, him training and stuff, this doesn't mean anything as far as him not leaving or anything like that. We don't really know. He needs to sit down and have negotiations with Real Madrid, with his agent, and see if they will offer him the money that he wants. And if he doesn't, I think he will be Arsenal bound. If they do agree with it, then I 100% think he's staying. I don't think he's going to pick between the two. I think he's already picked in his head if he can get the contract written up that he wants. I worry that we're getting caught in this to a point where, like I said with Edu, this could go on. Because it feels so long in the tooth already, and he's only just returned. Like, of course, nothing's happened. He's been on holiday. Like, it's the same with Bruno Guimaraes. He got back to training today. A bid went in. It got rejected. Clubs are talking. That's how quick it happens once they're back. They can't really do much until they're back. Vinicius is back, so that means this should accelerate, and we should know pretty soon. But what I don't want to do is be not on Wednesday's podcast, but not Mondays next week, not on the Patreon, not even Wednesday in 10 days. I don't want to be still going, I don't know what he's going to do. We should know this week what's happening with Vinicius, and then we can look at different targets. And also I need to look at, do we need to look at other targets? Is there a left winger out there? Because in amongst all this, by the way, we were very interested in Rodrigo last year. Vinicius is staying. We've got Valverde, we've got Diamande, Mbappe, Vinicius, Rodrigo, Endrick. They have an abundance of players, and if they're keeping Vinicius, what if this was a smokescreen the whole time by Arsenal to go and get Endrick or go and get Rodrigo? And we have shown interest in particularly Rodrigo last year, and we saw that as a massive signing if we got it done. We just didn't think Vinicius was in the bracket of something that could get done, similar to like Mbappe or Haaland or anything like that. So this could be a smokescreen even on our behalf. Maybe it's us working them a little bit. But because if they sign him for massive money and they keep him, we're then going to go, well, what's happening with Rodrigo? And they go, yeah, true. We've got a lot of money tied up in that player who we've just basically destroyed his pathway. So I think there could be some other stuff going on. But I do fear that it's just a saga that's going to go and go and go. We're going to miss out on multiple other targets who are going to go elsewhere. And then we're going to look a little light. And I do think it's 1 in, 1 out. I do think that the Norgard one, they're kind of holding off until they have guarantors in the Bruno Guimaraes transfer. Once that gets guaranteed, I think you'll see Norgard go straight away and then Bruno Guimaraes get a medical. I think if Vinicius has more conversation with Arsenal, I think Martinelli will be gone. I think it's very much 1 in, 1 out. And I don't mind that policy because I think our squad size was correct last year. And if it's not Martinelli, I think it'll be Wineri. And they'll just kind of bring more players into one position. Because we have an abundance of 10s. If Martinelli went, we'd have 2 new left wingers. Completely a new left side. If we get rid of Wineri, you got 3 left wingers. But 1 less 10. But we also didn't have Wineri at all last year. And we haven't replaced him. So we're not losing out on what we had in that position last year. Plus you assume that Odegaard isn't going to be injured for 6 months. And Nors Moreno and Nors Havertz. So we won't be as thin as we were last year at times. So I do worry. I'm worrying about it now because it would be really fun. And what's interesting is sometimes when it looks like it does feel strong, like it could happen, I start to think in my head, I don't think we should do this. I think we're good. We should be smarter, or we should give people the minutes from someone else. But then their news comes out that maybe, like, oh no, he's definitely re-signing, like that kind of information. And I get a little bit sad, and I'm like, oh, that's a shame. I really was excited about that. So I kind of go back and forth with this concept of wanting him. And that's what I wanted to say was, if this transfer window ends with Meslier, who looked a good bit of business actually in that during the game, like the way in which he played out from the back, he was solid. And also someone said Arteta is sick because he pits the first and second choice keepers together. Now he's doing the second and thirds, which is funny. But Meslier, Hincapié tied down long term to a permanent deal. If it is just Bruno Guimaraes and there's no other forward, it's just Soles, do we see that as a good summer? Because realistically, a fullback / centre back that we all loved last year has signed permanently. That's great. Our third choice keeper just got stronger. That's that is definite. We brought in a 24-year-old untested version of Trossard, but this is a guy with more assisting goals and assists than anyone in the top 5 leagues in Europe. That isn't Harry Kane last year. So this is a guy that everyone should have been looking at really, and he looked strong in the preseason. And then you bring in Bruno Guimaraes for Norgard. For a team that went to a Champions League final, Carabao Cup final, FA Cup quarter final, and won the Premier League, that's an extreme upgrade. So I think if you zoom out, and we talk about zoom out a lot, that'd be an unbelievable summer. I think we got so caught in this Vinicius thing, it could overshadow the summer. And if it's not Vinicius, do we even need to go get someone from the left? I think a lot of us would agree that last year I think we were great defensively, great as a team, but we maybe lacked something in the final third. And I do worry that if you kind of lined up our top 6 attackers, so if you go Havertz and Gyökeres, Saka and Madueke, Martinelli and Trossard from last year, and you rank them from best to 6th, I think a lot of us would agree that Saka's number 1. I think a lot of us would probably agree that it's a toss-up, but I'd put Trossard potentially in 2nd. I think we'd have maybe Martinelli, Madueke bottom, and then Havertz and Gyökeres, you choose in the 3rd and 4th spot. But realistically, we've got our 2nd best attacker, and we got rid of that one. And again, timing, age, all these things. That's not the issue. It wasn't us choosing to get rid of number 2. But we've replaced 2, and we maybe brought in 4, and everyone jumped up a spot. We think. He might not also give as good a return as Martinelli or Madueke. We don't know yet. But what I mean is, if we thought our attack was that, we just got rid of our 2nd best one and replaced him with just one that we think probably sits around 4th in that. So if anything, we've weakened the attack, but the rest of the team's got even stronger. But when we already thought the rest of the team was already strong and the front was a bit weak, that feels a little bit like we do definitely need to bring an attacking forward in. But you do look at, Dalman and Waneri and these guys that could maybe fill in up there, and maybe they're better than, any player you could buy worldwide. Maybe the most exciting player in the world right now is Max Dalman. We just need to play him. And we don't have to spend 125 million and give 100% likeness and spend 600 grand a week and all that. Maybe he's right there. Maybe he would be better than Vinicius as of Vinicius at 26 years old in the Premier League acclimatising. Maybe that's the best player we have. So we don't know, but that's the bit I worry about. Is I think as a whole, if we don't bring in another forward, but we do bring in Bruno Guimaraes, I think we are massively improved. But I just think if you then break it down into individual parts of the field, I think we've weakened in the part that we were weakest and we've strengthened in the place we were strongest. So, the rich get richer, the poor get poor. It feels a bit like that, and that's a bit unbalanced. Do I think Vinicius just completely changes our attack? Not necessarily. Because, if the midfielders are maybe going sideways or backwards, or, Arteta's asking the team to defend in a certain way, it doesn't matter who you bring in. You could get Mbappe, Dembele and Vinicius. But if you tell them to do what our forwards were doing last year and put that shift in every 3 days in all competitions, I think you get similar output, to be honest. Maybe you score a couple more goals because they're just that good. But it is, we're going to have to change kind of the way we do things. So that will be interesting. For me, I would be very happy if it's just Bruno Guimaraes and no one else, and we move on maybe Jesus, Nelson and Vieira. If it is just Bruno Guimaraes, I wouldn't be opposed to keeping Jesus, just because he could play anywhere across that front three. We know we're going to get injuries, touch wood. Every year we kind of go, well, what's our best 11? And then we never see it because people are never fit. I don't mind if that's how it ends. If it's Vinicius, I think it's unbelievable. I think it's incredible. But I don't think if you don't get Vinicius, we have to go into the market and go buy £100 million, a Rodgers or a Barcola or someone in that kind of ilk. There's a lot of talk around João Pedro, which is worrying me a little bit, that we are willing to pay up to 90 million to Chelsea for João Pedro. He's an unbelievable football player. He's not 90 million. It feels like the Havertz deal again a little bit. We have that player. We don't need that player. We need an unbelievable world-class left winger or something like that. We don't need another 9 who thinks he's a 10 or anything like that. So I hope we stay away from that. Because we have to remember we are the best team in England and the second best team in Europe. And we've only improved. So no matter what happens, we have to remember that. But let's just see what happens. I'm just going to have one more scroll to see if anything has just popped up in the last few minutes. 23 minutes ago from Eduardo Haig. Is that what you said? And this is from Cyril Lopez. The movie that Vinicius is renewing, we have seen this ever since last season. We first said before the season starts in January, then before the World Cup, then before he goes on vacation. My feeling is that he will not renew. Wow. I don't know who this person is, though, that said it. Yeah, I don't know. It's so conflicting. Like you scroll and you see that, and then you scroll and you see him at training, and people saying he's definitely renewing. And then you see outlets in Madrid that are very well connected saying, I don't think he's renewing. Then police that are really connected here saying he's definitely renewing. It's very confusing. And this is what I don't want to get caught too deep in. It's great to talk about on the podcast, but there's only so many podcasts we want to do about Vinicius. Unless he becomes our player, then I could talk about everything. Then we could talk about how good this guy is and how transformative he could be and all these things. But as of right now, that is the latest information we have. The next information we'll have by Wednesday, we'll talk about on iTunes and Spotify here on Gunners Rose Podcast. If you've enjoyed it, give us a 5-star review. It doesn't take 2 seconds and doesn't cost you anything. But if you do want to spend a little bit of money and put back into the show, we have a Patreon. Click the link below. It's about £6 a month and you get extra audio every single month and a raffle to win a graded Arsenal sports card every single month. So you could be the lucky person on there. Check it out. Check all the links below, whatnot, and all those bits. But I'll be back on Wednesday where hopefully we have maybe a bit more clarity in both of the sagas and hopefully not more saga in from the 2 sagas. Time will tell. But we'll be back on Wednesday. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.